Hey, what's up guys, it's me Pratima, and today I will be taking an in-depth look at the OnePlus Nord 2T. If you remember, last year's Nord 2 and the first gen Nord before it were really good mid-range phones. So naturally you would expect its next iteration to also live up to those standards, right? But this phone, the OnePlus Nord 2T, is basically the same phone as the Nord 2 with just a few little changes. So is the Nord 2T a good offering despite the tiny upgrades over its predecessor? Let's discuss that in this review. Okay, so I have been using the OnePlus Nord 2T as my primary phone for just about 2 weeks now, and there are a few things about it that I appreciate a lot, like its well-built design. And although its form factor is very similar to the Nord 2, that is not something that I would complain about, honestly. Because it's such a comfortable phone to use, whereas its glass finish as well as the slightly curved back feel great on the hands too. Also, I cannot emphasize enough on how much I love this alert slider. It comes in handy when you're in meetings and you forget to keep your phone in silent mode, and all you have to do is this and your ongoing conversation goes undisturbed. It just looks very professional in my opinion. The only thing that I'm not okay with as far as the design goes are these camera modules. If you look at it closely, the lenses are just so randomly placed. I mean, symmetry can just rest in peace. I think the Nord 2's camera placement was way cleaner, and I would not have complained if they had gone with something similar here too. I would also like to highlight the fact that this back catches fingerprints quite easily, so if you use the phone without a cover as I do, you will be doing this all day. For durability, OnePlus has included Gorilla Glass 5 both on the front and the back of the phone. Likewise, the power and volume buttons here have a very nice tactile feedback, which has made interacting with this device quite satisfactory for me. Besides good design and solid build, the performance on this thing is pretty reliable too. Now, technically, the performance jump from Dimensity 1200 to Dimensity 1300 is not that significant, but I think OnePlus has made some improvements in terms of optimization and thermals with the Nord 2T. Here, I tested some popular games like PUBG, where I was able to get stable 40 FPS in the highest possible settings, while it also maintained an impressive 60 FPS mark in smooth graphics and extreme frame rate settings. It is also optimized to play some high FPS games like Mech Arena at 90 FPS, where I got about 87 to 89 FPS on average, even in the ultra graphic profile. I also tried playing the newly launched Apex Legends on it, where I got respectable results. It was only when playing GPU-demanding games like Genshin Impact that this device showed some signs of distress. At the highest settings with 60 FPS mode turned on, the game would hover around 30 FPS with frequent stutters. So you will need to turn down to medium graphics for stable gameplay, where the FPS mark is still around 30 FPS only, but the stability this time is so much better. And yes, the Nord 2T would heat up to about 41 degrees when playing Genshin Impact for about 20 minutes or so. But with other games, it would remain relatively cooler. Other normal tasks, including heavy multitasking and app opening, are superb here with no hiccups whatsoever. The typing experience is quite nice too, and so is the vibration feedback. It's strong enough for you to not miss your calls, nor it's irritatingly buzzy. However, I did notice that there's a bit of an aggressive battery optimization going on here, which would kill the background processes after a while. But except that, the overall performance has been satisfactory, and that's partially also due to the well-optimized Oxygen OS. And talking about Oxygen OS, I feel like OnePlus has been getting a lot of unnecessary hate because of the whole OnePlus Oppo merger thing. But for me, the overall usability has not really changed that much. Yes, there are a couple of minor UI tweaks in the settings and the camera app, for example, but that is all there is. Those core Oxygen OS functions are still here, it is still ad-free, and there are very few bloatware apps, so I would not make a huge fuss about the merger, at least for now. By the way, OnePlus has also pledged to provide 2 years of OS and 3 years of software updates here, which is nice. On the display side of things, well, it's pretty much the same stuff as the OnePlus Nord 2. You get the same 6.4 inches AMOLED screen with a 90Hz refresh rate and HDR10 Plus certification. It's a quality screen to look at with nice colors, contrast and brightness levels. And since OnePlus has optimized the 90Hz refresh rate quite well, I haven't faced any jitters or micro stutters here either. Now, one might argue that it's not a 120Hz panel, so it won't be as smooth, but I haven't faced much of a difference, honestly. However, I would have liked if there was an auto refresh rate option in the settings. So during my usage, I had to set the display to 90Hz all the time, which in turn resulted in just average battery life, and I always had to charge my phone before leaving my office for home at around 8 p.m. But since my smartphone usage pattern is quite demanding, this is common for me. So if your usage is a little less taxing, then this phone should easily last you an entire day. On the plus side, its 80-watt charger only takes around 30 minutes to fully juice this device. That means even if your phone dies in the middle of the day, you can fill it up within a matter of minutes. Okay, getting to the cameras, we get a very familiar triple camera setup that consists of a 50-megapixel Sony IMX766 primary lens, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle sensor, and a 2-megapixel depth sensing lens. We have seen the IMX766 at work in many other devices like the Realme GT2 Pro, the GT Neo 3, and even the OnePlus Nord 2, so we know that it's a reliable sensor. As a result, the Nord 2T does well in the camera department. Here, the main lens produces well-detailed shots with a good dynamic range. I've also got to appreciate how OnePlus has not gone with overly saturated optimization. Instead, its images have a very digestible level of vibrancy. Having said that, the phone does boost contrast by a bit. Likewise, the contrast looks slightly boosted in portrait images too, and the camera seems to brighten the subject a bit, but since the end result looks pleasing, I would not complain much about it. Selfies from the 32-megapixel camera are acceptable too. They look slightly pale in comparison to the primary images, but are good enough for their class. I am also impressed with the Nord 2T's nighttime shots, as even without the night mode turned on, it manages to capture well-detailed shots. Turning on night mode makes the exposure and detail levels even better. However, as with most mid-range phones, its ultra-wide-angle camera is strictly average. It fails to deliver a good dynamic range, there's distortion around the edges, and the overall detail levels are just subpar as well. So just like the ultra-wide-angle photos, I'm not particularly thrilled about OnePlus Nord 2T's video prowess either. It can only shoot up to 4K 30fps footages, and as you can see, the videos come out very shaky, and you don't have an option to turn on ultra steady mode for better stabilization either. But then again, if you're looking for better stabilization, you can switch to 1080p 30 or 60fps resolution, and you can get better stabilization, and the colors and everything else looks good too. And I also think that OnePlus should have given higher resolution options for selfie video recording, as the OnePlus Nord 2T is capped out at 1080p 30fps, and as you can see, the output is not very stable either. You can turn on the ultra steady mode, but the overall quality of the video decreases. Lastly, something that I'm not impressed so much with the Nord 2T is its speaker quality. They're loud, yes, and there's no distortion in the highest volumes either, but the highs sound very sharp and the overall audio is not balanced. They're okay for casually watching movies and stuff, but if you listen to a lot of music, you will find its audio quality to just be average. Okay, so from everything that I've discussed so far, you must have guessed that the OnePlus Nord 2T is a good phone in its class. And if you buy this phone, you won't regret it, experience-wise. But at the same time, while using this phone, I kept questioning myself if it was an unnecessary addition to OnePlus's portfolio to begin with. I mean, it's basically the same phone as the OnePlus Nord 2 in almost every aspect. I think it would have been better if the company had skipped this phone altogether and brought the OnePlus Nord 3 instead, with upgrades such as a 120Hz screen, a better ultra-wide-angle sensor, some quality of life improvements in terms of battery life, audio quality, and maybe a 4K selfie video recording option. So guys, that was all for our full review of the newly launched OnePlus Nord 2T. If you have any further questions about this device, or if you have any feedback for us, do let us know in the comments below. Till then, I'm Pratima Adhikari, and keep watching Gadget Byte.